righty, next up, every year when vacation time rolls around, 9 million Americans hit the high seas aboard cruise ships. We went on one not too long ago.
It was great.
I had a great time with our staff.
Yes.
Not just together. They offer every luxury you can think. They, the rock climbing walls and the surfing things and alcohol.
A great time, and most people do. But as you are about to see, when it comes to medical care, personal safety, and legal protection, they're a long way from home, You got to remember how far out at sea you are. Iris Cortina's grandmother, Corita, was the backbone of their family.
She's the one that kept the family going. She was the one with the parties, and she was very happy all the time.
Married to husband Jose for 57 years, the couple was recently retired and enjoying life.
My grandmother was a very healthy woman. She, at 69 years old, was going to the gym in the morning with me.
But in 2004, Corita and Jose decided to treat themselves to a 5-day cruise on Royal Caribbean. And on May 20th, they headed out to sea. But after less than 48 hours of fun, Iris had an accident.
Saturday morning, in front of the breakfast buffet, there was something on the floor, and she slipped and fell. And she fractured her left shoulder.
Taken to the clinic on board, Corita was given pain medication and her arm was put in a sling. She called Iris to tell her what happened.
She said, well, it's very painful. I'm in a lot of pain. I said, okay, don't worry. I'll get you out of there. I'll get you off the ship.
To do so, Iris says she called Royal Caribbean.
They were saying that she was fine, that everything was fine. My grandfather calls me and tells me, listen, I've been with your grandmother for 57 years. I know when she's not well. Her shoulder started swelling up like a basketball. Started feeling very weak, sweating, changing colors. Throughout the whole day, I was on the phone with them. I said, listen, I wanna get her off. I really wanna get my grandmother off the ship. Whatever it is I need to do, pay whatever it is, I'll do it. I need her off the ship. And Captain said no.
That night, Corita's condition worsened. She lost her eyesight and collapsed on the bathroom floor. Jose says it took 45 minutes before a doctor got to their room.
They told my grandfather that he needed to pay $37 to open up the clinic.
Iris says her weakening grandmother was kept in the clinic overnight with no one monitoring her condition. The next day, the ship officials finally decided to dock and get Corita off the ship. But the help came too late. Corita had passed away.
I was in shock. I couldn't believe it. Someone that's been with you all your life, it's so unexpected.
Oh, it's an awful story. Iris Cortina joins us this morning, and also with her is her attorney and the author of a fascinating new book, Unsafe on the High Seas, Charles Lipcon.
Yeah. Iris, we're so sorry about your grandmother, but thank you for coming on and having the courage. And we see it's all flooding back, just talking about it again. But take us from that moment at the funeral when you realize you saw the death certificate, and even more painful, at a funeral, you have to stop that funeral.
We had to stop the funeral. The whole family was mourning my grandmother. Sure. And at one time, at a point in time in the funeral, they give you the death certificate. Sure. So as I'm reading through it, I realized that on the death certificate it says natural causes. And here I am, I'm saying, natural causes.
Your grandma was very vibrant.
Yes, very healthy woman, would go to the gym in the morning, would walk 2 miles. I mean, she was...
We have a picture, I think it was taken the night before she fell. And you can see the two of them happy, this vibrant. I mean, she's smiling, she looks healthy. The next day, after she falls, and it was at the buffet line?
Yes.
You see a picture of her, she's already been treated and she's sitting in a wheelchair.
Yeah, arm in a sling.
Yes.
Yeah.
And she's being fed. That was that was the next day on the cruise?
Yes. She actually wanted to have that picture taken because she wasn't feeling well.
She knew something was really wrong.
She knew something was wrong.
But the death certificate says natural causes, and Royal Caribbean says it was a heart attack. You knew that it wasn't. You just felt it was not.
Yes. I had a hunch.
Did you do an autopsy then?
Yes. Yeah. We stopped the funeral. everyone went home.
What did everybody say when you did that?
They were in shock.
Yeah.
They were in shock. And it was pretty hard to get an autopsy because the medical examiner didn't know that it was an accident.
No, thank God you got it done. What did it say? What was the result?
Well, it was a fat embolism due to the fall.
Fat embolism.
A fat embolism
due to the fall. Now, who do you have helping you? Because your grandfather, her husband, doesn't speak any English. He speaks Spanish. Who do you have helping you do all this and deal with the cruise line, which is a major...
I had a couple that went with them, which was their neighbors for about 30-somewhat years, and they spoke very well English, and you know, they were informing us. But throughout the whole time, I was in contact with the cruise line.
But you stopped at Cozumel, right? And she was examined by a doctor on the island of Cozumel.
Yes.
Okay.
All they did was an X-ray, and it confirmed that it was a fracture.
Okay, so we can put her back on the ship, in other words.
Yes.
She went back on the ship, and she felt fairly comfortable with that diagnosis at that point, or no?
No. She had her bra was cut.
It was getting tight?
She couldn't breathe. And that's when they called the infirmary, and she, you know, they realized, okay, let's get
They realized there was a major problem, and you were calling saying, "I'll give you my credit card. I will pay for a helicopter to come here," which would cost probably tens of thousands of dollars. What did the captain say?
I didn't care. I wanted her off there. I wanted her off the ship. I told her, I promised her I was going to get her off the ship.
So between Cozumel, could she have stayed on Cozumel and gotten off that island? For some reason, she got back on the ship, and now the captain wants to go all the way to the Florida Keys, right?
No. They had said that they were going to, you know, towards the end, they said, okay, we're going to try to see if we can divert the ship.
Oh, I see.
But they didn't want to stop what they were doing.
Keep on schedule.
They have a schedule to meet, and they didn't want to stop it. So, I mean, it was pretty devastating.
Charles, you're nodding your head.
Yes.
Keep on the schedule. Is that a big problem?
It's very important to the cruise lines to get their passengers back and, you know, pick up the next group of passengers. So, you know, if they miss that schedule, it costs them a lot of money.
But surely they have to know. I mean, if something like this happens on board, it's going to get attention.
They don't.
Most of the time it doesn't. You know, people don't realize what happened. Cruise lines, they create all of the records. They tell you know, when they take bodies off, they tell the authorities, you know, there's natural causes or, you know, death by heart attack. And
but Charles, why? It seems like so simple. These are floating cities, no question about it. Why don't they have really well-trained medical attention? It seems like it would be worth the money.
I think what happens, there's a number of factors. One is what people don't realize. When you get on a cruise ship, they fly flags of convenience.
What do you mean by that?
You're no longer in the United States. You're in Liberia.
Right.
You're in the Bahamas. You're in Panama. Whatever flag they're flying, that's the country you're in.
So that's a big misperception. People go on board and they think, oh, it's, you know, it's a Royal Caribbean or it's Princess and it's going out of Miami, so it's an American cruise and everything's great and we can...
And it isn't. It isn't. And then the second factor is the cruise lines have this legal myth that they foster on people, that the doctors are not their employees. Even though they're wearing the uniform, they have the stripes, the doctor's an officer.
Oh, who are the doctors? Are they contracted per cruise?
They claim they're independent contractors, but the truth is they're usually on 3 to 6 months. They get a salary.
Are they American doctors?
No. For the most part, they come from other countries, many times third world countries, and the medical care is just awful.
That's the significance of that fact.
Yes.
The medical care just not up to standard.
It's not up to standard, and then the cruise lines disavows any responsibility. So if something tragic happens, like to Iris's grandma, they say, we're not responsible. We don't employ the doctor.
Sure.
But the cruise lines have made strides in the past, haven't they? I mean, you know areas where they have helped, where they have actually created regulations.
Well, they've gone to a voluntary set of standards on what equipment to carry, what kind of expertise the doctor should have. But it's totally voluntary. They don't have to do it.
Yeah.
Many times they do, many times they don't.
We contacted Royal Caribbean to appear on the show with us. They declined, but did provide a statement. This is part of it here. It says, in part, Royal Caribbean International extends its heartfelt sympathies to the family and friends of Mrs. Cruz regarding her death. Mrs. Cruz was subsequently found to have died from a fat embolism, just like Iris told us, that traveled to her heart, which is extremely difficult to diagnose, they say, under the best of conditions. Respond to that, Iris.
Her not being able to breathe, her sweating. She even said it was my birthday, and it wasn't. She was confused. She urinated blood on the toilet. She fainted. Was your grandfather at least able to sit with her while all this was going on, while she was being looked at? No. That's a very sad part of the story, because at 1 o'clock in the morning, when my grandmother tells him in the cabin, I'm not feeling well, I need to go to the bathroom, she faints on the floor. My grandfather goes and knocks on the neighbor's cabin, and they go ahead and they call the clinic, the infirmary, and they say that, you know, he's got to pay $36. The doctor comes $36
to open the clinic.
I'm sorry, $37
to open up the clinic.
My grandfather is devastated. He's saying, you know, please listen, this is my wife that in the morning she had fallen, you know, we've been back and forth. Oh, okay, well, we'll send the doctor. When they send the doctor 45 minutes later, then, you know, it was just so many symptoms, you know, and then they send her to the clinic, and my grandfather at 2 o'clock, 2:30, I mean, I don't want to say times, was sitting outside the clinic, and my grandmother was inside the clinic by herself, and he was sitting on the floor till 6 o'clock in the morning till it opened. And when he opened, when the nurse came to open up the clinic, the infirmary, he noticed that there was no one in there with her.
Charles, you listen to her story, and after reading your book, I think what I got out of it was, we go on these ships with this false sense of security, don't we?
That's it in a nutshell. People believe they're in some kind of special bubble or cocoon, and nothing wrong will happen to them. They believe the cruise lines is looking out for them. You know, first of all, the cruise lines don't want bad things to happen to passengers. You know, they're in business and they want their guests to have a good time. But when something bad does happen, then they become the adversary of the passenger. And then they start thinking about their pocketbook. And that's what
you got to take care of yourself, Charles.
That's what guides their decisions. And that's why I wrote this book, Unsafe on the High Seas. To get the message out to people. There are dangers there. Have a safer cruise. Be aware. Don't leave your common sense at
Well, it's interesting because we did try to get to the cruise industry several different ways, but nobody would come out, come on and talk to us. I mean, they do have PR departments, and that's what they're paid to do. So I don't really know why they can't actually come here on the set and do that. But to read the entire statement from Royal Caribbean, who at least gave us a statement, you could go to our website. It's mnjshow.com. And hopefully, you know, the Congress people and the senators and all these folks can really get on the ball and start changing the regulations and changing the rules. Your book is really going to be helpful with that, because I know there are a lot of folks down in Florida that ain't helping out.
No, and a very strong lobby for the cruise industry, too. Hey, if you would like to get a hold of Charles's new book called Unsafe on the High Seas, log on to our website again, mnjshow.com, for more information.
And we will be right back in 90 seconds.
Thank you, Iris, for being here.